All right, it looks like we are at our starting time. Good morning. My name is Jeff Wright. I'm the Director of Outreach for Piestar, and we're delighted to be here. So far through these sessions, members of our support teams, implementation, training, outreach, and executive staff have thoroughly enjoyed the keynote, the breakout, and the concurrent sessions that we were able to attend yesterday and so far today. We can certainly appreciate the effort and coordination required to put on a successful event like Virtual NARIC 2021. And we know that the success of this event reflects the skills and the talents that each of the committee members exhibit as members of their respective teams. So fortunately, ahead of time, we knew the event would be a success, as we've had the privilege of working with a number of the NARIC Planning Committee members so far as Piestar customers. We believe that in the Northeast, there is exhibited a model cooperation that we hope the NIH and broader IDEA community would take a particular notice of. And so it's on this topic of teamwork and being better together that we would like to focus on today, how natural partnerships have helped to develop mutually beneficial best practices, workflow enhancements, data collection, and of course, streamlined RPPR and SIRS data collection and report submission. To share recent stories of client success, it is my pleasure to introduce Piestar co-founder and CEO, Ben Claar.
Thanks, Jeff. So before I get started, I would like to encourage anyone who's brave enough to turn on their video. I was actually thinking that this would be one of those talks where I couldn't see anybody and I'd be talking to a brick wall. So super excited to see you all here, and I can at least see your profile pictures. And if you want to turn on your video, it'd be great to see you. So many of you I've met and some of you I've not. So I'd like to start with just talking about who Piestar is. Piestar is a proud sponsor of 2021 NARIC this year. And more than that, we consider ourselves a part of the IDEA community. We are a software company that offers cloud-hosted software basically for annual reporting for IDEA programs, as well as NSF, USAID, and other programs. And just a little bit of background before I get into the bulk of the talk, so you know who you're hearing from. Piestar started at Kansas State University in an evaluation office. They had been using Microsoft Access to evaluate research programs for years and years and years. And as the cloud took off, they said, we need to develop an online system, and we need to do it in such a way that it can not only do Oklahoma and Louisiana EPSCoR, who they served, but also our other clients, our USDA clients, our USAID clients, our Bill and Melinda Gates or NIH, et cetera. And so these evaluators had the vision to say, let's create a database that's basically a shadow system of the federal reporting requirements, as well as let's collect all of the evaluation data we need. And while we're at it, why don't we get the same data that the directors and program coordinators and other administrative staff need, just to know what people are associated with our award, what outputs have we developed, are we doing better this year than last year? And so that's how Piestar got started. A group of evaluators had the vision to create this system. What I'm going to talk about today, though, is something kind of magical that happened that I didn't expect, which is that as we received more and more programs using the same software, we began to develop community. So far we have 20, I can't do math, 22 states. No, 32. I really can't do math. 32 states. Am I crazy, Jeff? That's 32, right? Using Piestar. Thank you. And it's really incredible because we thought we were serving individual research programs, but what I'd like to talk to you about today is what we've found is we're not serving individual research programs. We are forming communities. And what we found is a lot of these programs, before they used Piestar, were pretty isolated. And after they began using Piestar and their peer programs also used Piestar, they actually began talking to each other about how to use Piestar. Hey, how are you collecting your rosters for trainings? How do you report to this tricky part of the federal reporting system? And so some really neat things started to happen as we developed not just some software to serve these communities, which is kind of our bulk of our bread and butter. I'm a computer guy by training, but we began to see some community effects. And that's what I really want to talk about today, is all of you actually. So I have way too many people on this slide, and this is maybe the biggest sin of my career because I know I'm going to offend a bunch of people, because I put their picture up here without asking which picture they wanted. But even worse, there are a lot of people who have helped to shape Piestar into what it is, especially the reporting requirements that are aligned with NIH reporting requirements. What I have here are the INBRE directors and staff that have directly worked with Piestar and each other to develop this reporting system and align it with the NIH RPPR and SIRS and administrative needs. But there were also many COBRE personnel, as well as, EPSCoR staff and others who have contributed to making this system a success. So if I left you off, I'm sorry. If I mispronounce a name during this talk, I'm sorry. So hopefully I don't offend anybody, but these people are very special to us because as we began to receive NIH clients the last few years, and last year was really a big surge where the IDEA community really embraced Piestar. We are now up to 20 IDEA programs using Piestar. These are the people who worked with us to make it happen. And so I'd like to basically go through a success story of how did these administrators and staff create a system that acts as a shadow system of RPPR and SIRS and serves their evaluators, and what did that look like? It's also going to introduce you to how the Piestar system works. So it's going to be a little dual homed of talking about the work that these people have done, but also giving you a flavor for what does this system do and how can we streamline administration as a community and how can Piestar help? So that's what we're going to get into. So step one of what we did and what they did really is they aligned the data collection form piece of Piestar to the RPPR and SIRS. So here, if you've ever had the misfortune of filling out these federal reports, you will recognize sections B through G. There's also A and H. And so here, actually, Caroline Robinson created this form herself using our form builder tool. She said, okay, we would like our component leads, the PIs of each component, to fill out their RPPR in Piestar so that I have a chance to manipulate it before it goes in the federal system. So she used our form builder and she just created the same questions in Piestar that are in the RPPR. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of Piestar and specifically the RI-INBRE version of Piestar. This is actually specific to their particular program. After she created those, we created other forms such as forms aligned with the SIRS outputs that are aggregated for SIRS. And so once those were created, actually, we created additional forms. So besides the RPPR and SIRS, my next example is an Idaho INBRE site. Here, Linda Liu created some specific forms just for her INBRE, because as we all know, if you've seen one INBRE, you've seen one INBRE. We are all different. So yes, we have common requirements, but we also have our own special sauce that makes our program special. And so here, Idaho said, well, I need to capture investigator training. I need to capture community programs, et cetera. And so she was able to create those forms. But the forms, of course, are just one piece of it. The magic behind Piestar is what we can do with those forms. And one of the neat things that we do, again, on a community basis, is we can share our forms with each other. And so I wanted to show this voucher application example. So Arkansas INBRE again, they had a voucher program, and keeping track of this via email is a nightmare. You get lots and lots of vouchers. Which ones have I responded to? Which ones haven't I? So she created what's called a request form in our system. And when this is filled out by a researcher, an email goes to whoever's administrating the voucher program. They can approve, they can deny, they can say change is required. An email goes back to the requester. And so once the forms were created, this is where the magic started to happen. We published a form library to all of the IDEA programs. So now all the IDEA programs can see, how does that other program handle REU student tracking? How do they do core usage? How do they track their INBRE funded equipment? How do they do the RPPR reporting? What demographics and diversity statements do they use? And it's really neat because we're all learning from each other. And so we published the kind of the best practice forms in this library. And when you use Piestar, you can go to this library. You can say, oh, cool, someone created a mentor evaluation form. I'm going to click on that and use that as a starting point for my mentor evaluation form in my program. So that's kind of what we're up to. So once we get our forms created, the next step that these programs did is they did what's called a reporting session. In other words, they asked Piestar's system to email out all of the researchers at all of their institutions. So INBREs are a little more complicated. They're multi-institutional. And so Piestar is actually going to email all the way down maybe to the undergraduate student who's having an undergraduate experience at each institution that's even partially funded by the INBRE. And so here they're setting the open date and the close date, which is going to determine when those emails are sent out. On the right side of the screen, we can determine which components are going to be part of this collection cycle. So again, these INBRE programs said, okay, I want my cores to report, or I want my pilot grants to report. And they can actually target a reporting session just to specific parts of their project. They can say which forms will be filled out by which people. And another really cool thing is then they can talk to other INBREs and COBREs and say, hey, this is how I'm doing it. How are you doing it? And so collaboratively, we're beginning to zero in on those best practices of how often should we be querying, what type of query should we have? Like we have one program that does a mentor-mentee evaluation separate that I'm going to talk about later. And so you can configure all of that through Piestar. Then there was nothing more to do. So after they configured the system to know when the reporting should happen, the automated emails went out to maybe 200 people across all these different institutions. Those people then received the email, and then they filled out the form specific to that particular program, whether they were INBRE or COBRE. In these cases, they were INBREs. And so the team members, the individual researchers, then would log into the site, click on the link in the email, and they would fill out these forms. Now, this may be the way you've been doing it for years, right? What's different? Well, instead of emailing out Word templates, which are blank every year, and each person fills them out from scratch, we've got a lot of magic in Piestar, again, by the evaluators who created it, to streamline this process and to deduplicate and to not ask questions that are not relevant. And so we can import publications from MyNCBI, and so we can handle reporting in a way where we actually report as a project or as a component. So if I have, maybe I have a PI, a co-PI, and several students all part of a component, they can actually see each other's data as they report it. So for example, if a publication is entered by a co-PI, the PI doesn't have to enter it. They can say, oh, look, that's already in there. Oh, but they typoed the title. I'm going to go and edit that and fix it. And so once those emails go out, the people log into the Piestar system, they fill out those forms you saw earlier, and they can actually see each other's data and make a communal report for each component that's part of the program. Another really neat part about Piestar is that longitudinal piece. We actually remember the data from year to year. So when you log in year 2, we already know your ERA Commons ID. We know your ORCID. We know the various data that you entered the previous year. So we say, hey, that publication that was in pending status, you need to go in and update us and let us know if that ended up being published or not published. As you can hear, Piestar understands the terminology and the world of an INBRE. And so when you call us and say, hey, we need to handle this piece of the puzzle, we actually understand enough about the IDeA program to speak your language and to make those adjustments to the process if we need to, so that we have a successful data collection cycle. So once those team members are all reporting, you are able to monitor their progress, which is what these IDeA programs did. They said, okay, I asked 100 people to report. Who has filled out all the forms I asked them to? Who has reached 100% progress of the forms I asked them to fill out? And there's a little button in Piestar that says, celebrate when they reach 100% complete, and confetti literally does fall from the sky. So it makes them feel good, makes you feel good. Yes, we have all the data from our people. And this is key because if we're going to tell NIH what we've accomplished, we need to know that we have a complete set of information from all the people that were partially or fully funded by our project. And so they fill out their forms, they click celebrate, they see confetti, and they're done. And then you as an administrator can then see the full overview of, did everybody I asked to report, or are there some stragglers? And I can then check up on those stragglers. After that piece was done and all their people filled out their data, hopefully in all these INBREs, the next step is actually new, probably for a lot of you. So after maybe you've traditionally emailed out researchers and say, hey, what did you work on? You get it back in email. Now you've got to like compile that into Excel or something. Well, in Piestar, all that data is in an online database. So everyone, 100 plus people logged in, they filled out their data. And so now we have a feature called the data cleaner that is the next step of the process. So we emailed all our personnel, they logged in, they filled out their data. Now as an administrator, I can use the data cleaner and I can go and I can look at all the data that were entered and I can actually clean it in the authoritative Piestar system database. What that does for us is that allows us to deduplicate, that allows us to do a quality check so that we know what we're reporting to NIH doesn't have duplicates. It's exactly what we want it to be. Maybe we had a junior faculty who emphasized something differently than maybe the full faculty wanted, or vice versa. And so we can look at it and say, okay, exactly what should be reported to NIH. And so here we can see that I have 3 publications pulled up, and it looks like this first one, oops, looks like this first publication typoed the chapter title. And so I'm just typing in there and fixing it right in the system. Because year one's data is going to be clean, all of these INBREs are getting a permanent, accurate record of what they did in year one, which means it'll match what they reported to NIH, which means they can compare year 2 and year 3 to year 1 and get valid results. And so this is a key part of Piestar is, again, I'm a computer programmer by trade. All of the data in Piestar is correctly coded by year. It's correctly coded by component. It's correctly coded by who entered it. And so all of this data is perfect. It's ripe for evaluator analysis or the PI to say, hey, are we co-publishing more with other institutions than we did last year? All of that data is in here. And that's kind of the idea. So after our INBREs cleaned their data, now it was time to run reports. We have 2 types of reports in Piestar. We have Excel reports, which are as boring as they sound, just rows and columns of exactly what was entered. We also can do custom reports that are much less boring and are colored and beautiful and fun. We also can do graphical reports outside of Excel. So just online reports, as you can imagine, on dashboards or PDF reports. We can do things like publications per year, et cetera. We actually don't have that report implemented in the system right now, but that's, we actually received from Chris Hemme, who's on this call, a list of some very nice graphs that they use. And so as a community, what reports do we want? I'm going to talk about our report roadmap a little later. Also on the right, you see what we call our SIRS report. And that you may, if you've ever dealt with SIRS, you may recognize that this looks a lot like SIRS, and that's intentional. There's a report within Piestar that looks just like the SIRS report, and we can easily tell which entries we've entered into SIRS and which we haven't. So that's kind of the report side. And so that's really what these INBRE programs did. They created forms within the Piestar system. They shared them with each other. They decided as a group, how should we measure publications? How should we measure mentor mentees? How should we measure, how should we keep track of our rosters? And how do we follow up with students? And we tried to build the ideal forms within Piestar. It's a work in progress for sure, but we're sharing them as a community. And so the idea is we talk to each other. We're not reinventing the wheel. If we do have a program coordinator leave, that institutional knowledge is captured within the system. And then all of that reporting is automated. So instead of taking your valuable time as administrators to send manual emails and then collate that into Excel, all that's in a proper database, coded the way it should be, easy to clean, easy to work with, easy to run reports, and we can save your time because you can do far more valuable things than send a bunch of manual emails. So that's this part of my talk as far as what it looks like to run a reporting session. I'd like to move on now. I think I'm okay on time. To the next thing I want to talk about is actually our first NIH client was Dr. Kirkpatrick at Kansas State University. And she has created a mentoring assessment tool that was actually just published this very week. And sorry, I lost my video here. This week, she published this mentoring assessment tool in the Advances in Physiology Education journal. And so this tool was actually developed in Piestar, which is why I want to point it out. And it's actually something she's offering now to the entire IDEA community for how to assess mentoring in IGMS programs, COBREs and INBREs specifically. And so Dr. Kirkpatrick actually created the first version of her assessment tool within Piestar. And I point this out just to show really that your creativity and your imagination is the limit with a system like this. So she went into our form builder and she said, okay, I want to do a mentee mentor survey. And so she created the options, she created the questions. And then as you saw earlier, she can then assign those to reporting sessions and say, hey, mentees, hey, mentors, log in and fill out my assessment survey. So that was the first step of her study, is she did a Piestar questionnaire. The mentors and mentees signed into Piestar and filled out the questionnaire. Then she ran our standard Excel export to analyze, okay, how's our mentor mentees going? The cool thing is she could set that up for 3 sessions a year and it just goes out like clockwork. And so she was able to do that and compare, are we doing better this year than last year? And even validate her survey instrument itself. So that was step one, is she actually surveyed her own mentors and mentees in her own program. I really like what she did next, though. She didn't just stay an island. Again, this talk is better together. So what Dr. Kirkpatrick did that I really think is awesome is she asked for community feedback. She contacted 78 grant directors. She contacted mentors and mentees in 21 different COBREs and 8 INBREs and said, hey, here's my assessment tool. Try it out. What do you think? And received a bunch of feedback. And so this actually ended up, as I said, creating a paper for her that she was able to put. And now this tool is available in this paper, or you can contact Piestar and we can give you a copy of the form. And so now we can all measure our mentor-mentee evaluations in a more streamlined way than ever possible before. So that's the mentor-mentee tool. The next part I want to talk about is just some general IDeA contributions. And this slide, again, I'm going to get in trouble because I could mention a lot more. But again, here's just some people from our awesome IDeA community who have done various things to help the community move forward. So Piestar also has an application review system, and Montana INBRE staff, who you see up here, Ann, Sue, Corey, and Bill, worked with Piestar to create a NIH-aligned review form that matches the NIH review criteria exactly to help junior investigators understand the NIH review process, as well as help them decide which pilot projects to fund. Linda Liu and Bill Stadweiser and Diane Smith worked to improve our what we call our roster feature, which is keeping track of the people in your project, as well as REU student tracking. Chris Hemme is chairing a Piestar reports working group. You saw that publications report earlier. What reports would be best to help all of our IDeA programs measure, are our institutions improving? Are our research programs improving? And he's actually working within the IDeA community to define those reports. And then last on this particular small list, I could have listed a lot more. We have a Piestar RPPR reporting standardization. Right now, our IDeA and COBREs all have a slightly different RPPR reporting structure. Can we standardize that so that we can all do it the same way and improve our process? And so Janine, Laura, and Gail are doing that. And we're really appreciative to these people who are pouring into this process to help us all improve. My last slide today is just how can I meaningfully stay connected to the rest of the IDeA community? There's actually, as I would hope most of you know, 2 existing groups that have been talked about many times in the IDeA community. NAPI is the National Association of IDeA Principal Investigators. So if you are a PI, that's definitely a group that you're probably already connected with. But I love NAPI's website. They actually keep the news and events and resources up to date. As a computer guy, that's super impressive because my site's never up to date. They asked me to mention they do have an omics research symposium coming up. But if you want to know more about NAPI or want to know how to connect with them and take advantage of more of their resources, please go to their website. The leadership committee is right there. Their pictures and emails are there. Please contact them. Another important group, and we have many of the Pearl members on this call, probably most of them. Pearl is the evaluators and administrators of the research grants, the IDeA programs. And so they have a session tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. So don't miss that. And if you want to know more about Pearl, you can contact Laura or Laura, and you can get a hold of them and learn more about Pearl. Highly recommended. They are a really tight-knit group, and that would definitely be a blessing to anyone who's on staff or in evaluation. And then the last one is a new one. Gail Frazier and Laura Bellavia have started a Piestar user group, and it is meeting monthly. And this is where the magic is happening. Hey, let's improve our reports, let's improve our forms. And so if you'd like to be part of that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Jeff to basically wrap this talk up and let you know how to contact us from there.
Thank you very much, Ben. Piestar is definitely committed to this community, and we're proud of the work that we've done together, but we know there's a lot more work that can be done. So if you're a member of the NIH, we would love to collaborate with you to improve our ability to help our clients meet your needs. Let's talk. If you're a member of an evaluation team, we have solutions for you and the programs you evaluate. Let's talk. If you are a grant-funded researcher with data collection and reporting requirements, let's talk. Overall, it's been a pleasure to join you today, and we look forward to working with this community for years to come. And Ben and I would love, with our last moments of time, to answer any questions. I did see that there was one in the chat on pricing. Basically, we would love to talk with you and your program directly, find out the details of your program, what institutions you're working with, and then come up with a custom price specifically for you. Any other questions? All right, perfect. Well, it's been a pleasure to join you today. Our contact information has been in the meeting information, Jeff Wright and Ben Claar. My email is wright@piestar.com, and we'd certainly like to speak with anyone that is available to chat. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.